Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick update on the Bitcoin price, because the trap that I was explaining to you guys yesterday occurred pretty much in the way I had expected it. So I noticed from the comments that some people didn't seem to understand what I said with there's a good chance to go up and a good chance to go down, but the end result is the same. And I'll summarize it again for some of the people that did not get it. If we do not close higher than this level, which we didn't, I expect a slight pullback, which happened exactly as expected. The pullback, the way we're seeing it, again, as explained in the video, I personally think could be very similar to what we saw back in 2020, where this week we see a lot of volatility. Here it was about a 12% drawdown or so before going for the massive breakout, and I think the first target to watch for is roughly 100,000, 100 to 2,000. Now again, what happened just now? Like said, Bitcoin gets to the all-time high level, but gets rejected, closes below the key line. The close was just barely below 69,000, then gets a rejection, and I guess here, let's quickly check, went down, can't see, roughly 3% or so. This 3%, I personally think, could actually be a little bit more significant, perhaps towards the most important previous support, roughly $60,000 or so. That's how things could kind of shake up in the midst here before ultimately moving onwards to these higher levels, like in previous cycles where people think, oh, it's going to be over. Oh, we saw. At the end of the day, though, you have to realize that people get shaken out every single cycle. In the previous times, we've had such a similar situation where, again, we had a rejection. Let me quickly put that back. At this all-time high level, you can see it right there. Then right here, along those lines, basically, we came back down. But ultimately, afterwards, it was only up. And here, yet again, we came back to that level, saw a rejection. Ultimately, though, afterwards, it was only up. Right now, I expect it again, that on the very, very short term, it might be a slight correction. As I said, if we go all the way back down to 60, that would look like this. The candle, which I don't think would close there. I think there would just be some price action in the midst before continuing on, with the only exception, like said in my yesterday's video, is that we kind of go sideways around this bunch for another few months or so before having that massive explosion perhaps later in 2024, because right now everything's moving a lot quicker than usual. But perhaps that's because we've got the halving very close and we've got the institutions joining the game. And I think this is the first time since perhaps like 2015 or so that the Bitcoin ecosystem itself is really bullish, with ordinals, BRC, runes coming up. And so if you're afraid, understand that if you zoom out, it is basically up only with a couple of slight issues in the midst. And that in my worst case scenario, we are going to be seeing a slight fall, perhaps even towards 50,000 in like the worst scenario, because I don't think Bitcoin will ever go below $40,000 again. Because take a look, once in a cycle, it really breaks to its all-time high. It never gets back to its previous all-time high. You can see right here, the moment it broke through for real, it never came back down. Right here in 2021 as well, the moment it broke through, it basically, skipped around, revisited the almost similar levels. But from 19 to 14 or so, let's see here, 14 or so, it didn't go back to these previous lows of like 3, for example. So here again, it could go definitely back to, if we go for a crazy rush, to 69,000, because that's what it just breached. It could go back a little bit lower, perhaps even 40, but I don't think it's going to go back all the way towards this previous high, because that's never happened before, right? The worst case basically is that we fall slightly below this high after the run starts. If we take a look at history, and I said that today we go a little bit more into the technicals, but honestly, I think this narrative is most important to understand, and that from every angle, Bitcoin thus far has been the best investment. This is Ethereum to Bitcoin. And what people are starting to realize is perhaps this has bottomed out, and that from here, basically, Ethereum is starting to become a more and more lucrative investment as the institutions are starting to focus on Ethereum, and perhaps they're going to take this mission a lot stronger or a lot more dearly as they focus on the Ethereum ETF and as they take away the focus from Bitcoin taking up more dominance. Once more, if we have a similar zoom out of sorts, we can see that right now as it stands, we are just facing one of the most important resistances, but we've tried to test $70,000 a few times. Every time got rejected. at some point is going to break down. If we are looking at it in a easy little overview, we can see that every single time we test that level, we are itching closer and closer to a breakout of sorts that lasts, because obviously there have been breaks, but they've not been strong enough to last, especially kind of saddening, you could say, that we did not close above the 70K mark over on the weekly on most exchanges, perhaps on one or two. But right now, this is basically what we're watching for a massive break. And I personally think that pretty quickly afterwards, Ethereum and alts are going to start running. But people also have to realize that, yes, you can see a lot of patterns in the price action here. It's quite obvious that we have a lot of really sudden and pretty explosive breakouts. But, and that's the key caveat here, the key factor, since we're getting into price discovery mode, it becomes less and less obvious what exactly you can put into this chart. Because from my own perspective, right, everything would just look bullish. Now, you might say, for example, oh, but a lot of people just got liquidated. So hundreds of millions of dollars were taken out of the longs after this shake from 70 to 66. And I say, well, for the last couple of days, we've been really adamant on saying, just keep buying the dip because it keeps working. So a shakeout of sorts on this. And so the point, as far as I see it, is pretty clear. And the pattern is pretty simple. Every time it gets to 70,000, right now we're seeing a rejection. We're seeing the liquidations go rampant, but ultimately everybody is itching on the same thing, and some people try to deny it. But the moment that 70,000 breaks, it's probably going to be a pretty quick move towards the upside. And some people are trying to stop that from happening because of the effects that price discovery tend to have. I think every single one of you knows the moment that it breaks through, it usually goes pretty rampant. And again, just to put it into perspective, the only issue we have right now is to break this current quote-unquote new all-time high. But really, since the price has moved up so quickly, there's not that much leverage that is built up. I mean, you might look at this and think, hey, the liquidation leverage looks to be really high, but relatively to some of the numbers we've seen previously, and relatively to some of these big moves, it really isn't that much because we've had a lot of, I'd say tiny, but pretty significant shakeouts. Again, just now, last night, that's again a pretty good shakeout to shake out leverage. And since people are not over leveraged, usually these moves tend to last and stick a little bit better. Again, guys, sorry for the very short update. I just wanted to get out there that pretty much what we expected to happen happened. And that from here on forward, the course, in my opinion, is also pretty obvious, which is try to test $70,000 perhaps for another few months. The moment that we break, I think, is going to be extremely violent. But no, in the past, we have also gotten rejected, faced 12% corrections or so from this level, and it took a few weeks or so to get over it. As I said in the previous video, sometimes it takes a few weeks, and perhaps since we're so early this time, it takes a few months to get over that hurdle. But I still believe the moment that we do cross over it, it's going to be very quick. And what I'm still doing, guys, is still DCAing into positions. So every time you get a good chance at like 66, for example, like here just now, I don't think it's too bad of an idea to stack up because we know the future for Bitcoin and crypto now. Just on the short term, some people are de-risking at 70K every single time, just cashing out some of their position because it could take a while as we're getting into unexplored territory in terms of getting so high before the halving. But yeah, that's about it. Make sure you press the like button, check the links down below for the exchange that I use.